Happy new school year. I feel like confetti needs to just pop.
26.
We just jumping straight in. So happy new school year for all of our brothers and sisters in education in most of the South and parts of the Midwest. And those in the North and Northeast, you got one more month of summer before the kids come back.
Yep. Yep. And here I'm in Southwest Virginia, and I think they started this week.
Uh-oh, wait, I got double speaking here. Go ahead.
Yeah, they Virginia started this week, I think.
Yes, and again, Northeast goes back typically. Well, I think Chicago public schools just went back this week, or they're going back soon. In the South, we started here on August 4th. Yeah, so sometimes people are like, "Oh, hope you had a good summer." It's like, wait, summer doesn't end until September 22nd.
Labor Day.
Yes, after Labor Day. So welcome back. And it has been an interesting summer. So Kelly and I took some time off this summer, and we're beginning to retool just as you as educators and those of you who are allies to educators, we take the time to think about our work. And we're continuing to work on our work. And what that means is new programming, new looks that we'll be unveiling in the next several months. We have a new team member who is helping us keep ourselves on track and streamlining our work. And we really are very clear about our purpose. So we're excited to kick off this school year as you all are kicking off the school year with great energy, but also really, really keenly aware of how our education system today is challenged financially, challenged in making sure that we are doing right by all kids, as a friend of mine would say, each and every child, especially those minoritized students, and then how we have to keep ourselves well. So our work in Lucy Leadership Project is to not just disrupt, but also to help women thrive in these systems. And we're doing that not just with women. We're helping educators do that. And so I'm so glad to be on this journey with you, Kelly.
I am too. And I'm so glad to be on this every single day. I'm grateful for you and for this work that we get to do together. Yeah, I like to say this summer we cleaned our closet, right? We went into the closet, we kept all the vintage pieces that still work and still fit.
Yeah,
And
well, some
and
of them.
and look good. And then we made, we added a few new pieces. And so eventually we'll unveil what's in our closet, and we're so excited for that. And for all of you to be here. And I just want to take a moment and ask everybody that's listening to just take a breath, because the air is heavy right now
Mhm.
for a variety of reasons, for many, many reasons. And when we're bombarded with it every day. So I'm just going to invite you to come into the chat, come into the room with us. We've got an amazing guest
Yeah.
with us today to kick off our 2025 school year season with Book Talk Live. But yeah, just come in and settle in and give yourself this moment. I like Kendra often says that, professional development should be looked at as a spa moment, because it's your moment to pour into yourself. So if you're sitting at home and you're having dinner and you're listening, or if you're having a glass of wine and listening, or if you're, you know, hopefully you're not doing work at this time, but if you are doing work and you're listening, just settle in and give yourself this time in this space. And so I'm going to ask you to just take a really big, deep breath, and then just exhale
Yeah.
and just come into the room. So tonight we are going to, I'm going to introduce you, Kendra and I are going to introduce you to a friend, someone I go back several years with, when I was at the Gallup organization, and we did some work together. We did some work side by side. I watched when I left around 2016, 2017, it was just amazing to watch her go on her journey to find her place. It's a lot of what we talk about at Lucy Leadership is, you know, who are you and where are you at your best? But I watched her when she would be on the Gallup podcast, and she'd talk about strengths, and she'd talk about well-being, and she'd talk about authenticity and what does that mean. And Kendra and I like to say, if you're not being authentic, then you're hustling. So I just think this is such a great guest to have and a great conversation to have starting off the 2025 school year. So I want to just read a little bit because I don't want to leave anything out, because she deserves all the flowers. She deserves all of them, as we all do. But Maika is an executive coach. She's a leadership consultant. She's an advocate for a talent first approach to development. Really focusing on people's talents. She has nearly 20 years of experience in global management consultant, and she's helped thousands of leaders and coaches from all sectors, not just education, but all sectors. She was the co-creator of Gallup's Global Strengths Coach program, which some of you who are on tonight might be a trained Gallup strength coach. Some of you might have been coached by a Gallup strength coach. Kendra, you're a certified strength coach. I worked and sold the thing for 17 years, so I know it pretty well. But she played a pivotal role in shaping how strengths-based coaching is taught and practiced around the world. She also co-hosted Gallup's popular Theme Thursday podcast, a resource designed to deepen understanding of the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And her approach is deeply rooted in positive psychology and enriched by her personal experiences navigating corporate burnout, resilience, and reinvention. And if you don't follow her on social media, I'll remind me, Kendra, to ask her how to follow her, because
Yes.
she puts out nuggets of gold for us to think about. She lived abroad and parented across cultures. She brings a grounded human perspective to leadership development. Her career is marked by both the challenges of misalignment, we all know that, and transformation that comes from authentic partnership, grace, and trust. These experiences inform her coaching philosophy that success is best achieved not through effort alone, but through alignment with natural talent and intentional, compassionate leadership. Gosh, do we need more of that today? As the leader of her private boutique consulting practice, Maika supports clients as they navigate change, complexity, and ambiguity. Her work goes beyond traditional leadership frameworks, explores how clients can deepen self-awareness, foster stronger relationships, intentionally enhance their influence, and build strong internal communities. Maika holds a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism, Kendra.
Yep. I got it. We shared it. Yep.
And Masters of Education in Adult Learning. And she runs the Thriving Coaches Collective, an ICF accredited consulting cooperative, and partners with corporate and private clients around the world through the Maika Leibbrandt Consulting. And here's our friend and our guest tonight, Maika Leibbrandt.
Hey, Maika.
Hey, what an honor to be here.
We're so glad you're here.
Yes.
What a warm introduction. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well deserved. And we couldn't ask for a better guest to kick off the two sides of that coin, to kick off the new school year and have leaders and educators and anyone who's listening to us tonight to think about their leadership and how they might be able to approach leadership differently. But also, as I said before, it's heavy right now. It's very, very heavy. And so when things are heavy around us, and Mike, we'll talk about how well-being impacts our strengths. But when things are heavy around us, we sometimes show up not as our best selves. And so how can we maintain that best self in the face of a lot of the challenges that educators are going through, but then what you might be going through personally? But we always start with this question, so we have to ask you this.
Yes.
Okay, but I have to play Vanna for a minute. So Maika, there's this book called Unwrapped. So we always like to ask our guests the first question, which is, what does becoming unwrapped mean to you?
Well, first of all, hold the book up again, because I'm very proud that I dressed in your colors tonight. This was
Thank
intentional.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh,
And text us later where you got the shirt.
Totally, totally. So I thought a lot about this. So thank you for the heads up on this question.
Mhm.
And the first thing I thought of was, oh, naked, obviously.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit tongue in cheek. And then I realized, no, there is something really courageous about saying, here I am in all my glory, take it or leave
Mm.
it. And I work with a lot of leaders, but I'm going to take this from a personal standpoint, not just what I've noticed research based or with my clients, but I think it means unwrapped is having the courage to, first of all, understand your uniqueness, and which on its own is a difficult lifelong thing to do. Second, to understand what fuels that uniqueness. And then third, to choose every single day to intentionally put that into the space around you.
Ugh.
Holy smokes. All right, I got to jump in real quick
Please.
because I want to jump on to the words, the last part that you just said, which is choosing.
Mm.
And I want to go back to sort of the introduction, for Kelly and I, this journey in Lucy Leadership Project was a choice. A brave choice, a daring choice to bet on ourselves.
Mm.
And for those educators who are starting the school year under extreme pressures, ambiguity, in some cases, even questioning, are they in the right place? For being unwrapped, what you just said, for them to get up every single day amid the ambiguity, chaos, and all those things, and continue to choose to educate our nation's children, for those who might be watching internationally, you choosing every day to be an educator, that's a huge responsibility and an honor to be part of the cadre of people who choose that every day. And that is hard to do.
Mm.
To consciously say, I'm going to choose this work. And the last thing I'll say to what just resonated is, for you to be able to do this work in this current environment, you also have to choose yourself. You have to start with taking care and knowing yourself in order for you to be in service to others. It's the mask, right? Put the mask on first before helping others. And so I just wanted to, you struck the chord right there. Like, that is exactly why you are the perfect person to help kick off this conversation.
Listen, I think it's the only way to sustainably survive in any difficult circumstance is to
Mhm.
figure out, wait, who am I? If none of this is happening to me, but it's all happening by me, who
Mhm.
am I when you strip away all the difficulty? Who am I when you strip away the hustle, Kelly, like you mentioned?
Mhm.
And I don't think we can do that from the jump, from the get go. I acknowledge I'm incredibly standing on the shoulders of giants, incredibly privileged in a lot of the experience that I've had, and I've definitely been at my best when people have just assumed I was going to succeed. And
Mhm.
so much of what we put in people's way, and so much, I'm sure, of what's happening in the PD days leading up to day one of school for a lot of our educators is, how many things do we add on top of
Mhm.
your talent? And to be able to take that in, be curious about it, use it in a way that it's going to be a building block, that it's going to help you and your students, and then let what they remember be what shines from underneath it.
Mm.
Who you are, how you teach, how you educate, how you build community and relationship and connection. That's something that nobody can teach you, and that's the part that I think you have to figure out. If I take away all of these other pieces, what's left? And then how do you start with that and claim it and have some language for it, understand the effect it's going to have on other people, and introduce that style before it introduces you, because people are going to see it anyway. At
Mhm.
some point, you can only hustle long enough that either you break down and crumble, or people see through it and they figure out who you are. So why not just be in charge of that?
Mm.
Wow. Yeah, I know that for real.
Okay, so I kind of want to stay on this, but I want to keep going down this road. So one of the things that we talk to the women that we work with about, and one of the things that we're trying to build is not just an experience or a PD or a workshop, but a journey. As they're starting to go on their, we like to refer to it as kind of an unwrapped journey. And there are many, many phases to that journey. And one of those phases is a strengths understanding of
Mhm.
how you naturally think, feel, and behave, what you do really well, how you can do that, how you manage it, all of those pieces. So talk a little bit about, and I know you've had a strength journey.
Mm.
So talk a little bit about that idea of going on a journey. So let's say I'm making the choice, I'm going to show up authentically. I'm going on this journey. What might that look like? And
Yeah.
what did that look like for you?
I think it starts by assuming that you have enough talent to be successful, that it's not going to be a discernment process of will I make the cut or will I not? And that, especially I think for high achievers in the world who have always said, just show me the syllabus and I'll get an A, that can be a really terrifying assumption that, wait a second, maybe this is additive on top of hard work, but you can do a lot better thinking if you about your own style and your own strengths if you're assuming that it's not going to be what makes you successful or might make you fail. So just suspend disbelief for a second and say that you are in a room with 10,000 other professionals who all have your same job and you are all going to succeed. And I think that is part of what I've learned recently about not just strengths and my own journey, but sort of about this a mindset of abundance where you get to be a lot more creative. You can be a lot more collaborative. You can be a lot more supportive of other people around you when you recognize actually you're not competing against them. So if you can start with this assumption that there are enough great people out there to do the work, and there's enough important work to be done. Set any sort of competition or a narrowing that only so many of us can succeed aside. Once you've got that assumption, then you can pay attention to, okay, how am I? Let's say we're in that room with 10,000 other people who all have the same job. How am I different from any of them? If I had to stand up with no prep and teach them something, what would it be? And at that level, you can get really, really specific. So I use the word talent and strength sometimes interchangeably. But if you think about just the numbers involved here, if you, I used to teach fourth to sixth grade, not in a public school, but as a volunteer when I was an undergrad. My very favorite role ever was teaching fourth to sixth graders. And then sometimes I get to teach them strengths camp. There's something just magical about that age because they're brave enough to still say their truth without all the shame, but they're also like unfiltered enough that they're going to tell you the truth, even if it hurts.
Yeah.
So I would always ask, this group of age of humans, who is talented? What do you think about when you think about talent? And they go big. They
Yeah.
go to, Taylor Swift and all the other athletes whose names I can't remember, but they go giant. And I think sometimes adults try to say, okay, well, when we talk about talent, it's not that, it's smaller than that. Don't
Mm.
run away from that. Allow it to be what a fourth grader would think is talent. That level of potency. If you're in a room with 10,000 other people and you have to teach them something, it's not just something you've worked really hard at. It's got to be something that comes from within you in some sort of way. And you can pay attention to, what are you doing when you lose track of time? But you can also pay attention to what have your greatest mentors seen in you that you took for granted because you thought everybody could do that.
Mm. Yeah.
And it is a lifelong journey to pay attention to some of those clues that your own gifts are trying to give you. But I do think there's a lot of almost spiritual mission behind this when you can recognize that we have entire populations of students who don't need the exact same cookie cutter educator. In fact, they need 10,000 different ones.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we're all aiming at that same mission and as long as we're all assuming that we're going to do the work, really what differentiates good from excellent, from memorable, from like mentor level difference maker is those people who can say, I'm going to succeed in my own style, not by trying to replicate what somebody else did, and
Mm,
not just by hard work alone. And that's where I have fallen flat on my face, is not taking my own advice and just thinking I could make up for the what felt like a risk and a vulnerability of saying, hey, actually, I'm not going to do it that way. I'll still get to the end result, but I'll do it in a different way. That feels risky, especially if you're constantly being I don't know, evaluated, and you've got a bunch of
mhm.
eyes on you, and maybe you're in a heavy space where you don't know who you're going to offend, or what if that's not going to be somebody's favorite? There are so many risks to truly showing up as your authentic self. And I, for a very long time, tried to opt in the other direction of saying, I can be whoever you need me to be, and I can be it at a 10 out of 10.
Mm,
Well, what if I could have been me and been a 15 out of 10 for a heck of a lot less effort?
Mm.
So, all this to say, it's not easy to show up as your most authentic version of yourself. I think it takes understanding it, continually studying it. It takes putting higher bars out in front of you. So, I mentioned that first assumption is that there's enough good people out there to do the work and enough work to always be done. You don't have to be competing. Probably the second assumption to get right is that your own personal best you have not yet accomplished.
Mm.
Imagine that. Imagine if, like,
yeah.
the most critical success you've ever had in your life is not as good as what you still will be. Then that means, okay, let's do something with that forward moving energy, that achiever space that says, I just want to hustle. That's fine. Keep working hard, but work hard in a vein that teaches you more about how do you be excellent at what you're already good at.
Okay, two things. Okay, you say words, and then the two things come to mind. Okay,
Great.
the first thing is for those. So I immediately go to the reason why I thought the best experience with the idea around Clifton Strengths in general as an educator working at the time in Gwinnett County Public Schools, because this whole idea of what you just said around, like, just thinking about how that can transform in education, this
Mm,
idea of a teacher being really good at his, her, their work as who they are
mhm,
as a teacher.
mm,
Because the tendency is to, here is what teaching is, and go fit in that.
yeah.
And I used to always say this, which just blew my mind. Anytime that there was somebody who was named Teacher of the Year, Leader of the Year, something of the Year, they were extraordinary because they did not fit in that box.
Mm, yep.
They pushed through it. They did something very different. And then, at first it was like controversial. Like, wait a minute, that teacher is doing that thing in that kind of way, and it got these results, and parents and kids were flocking to their classrooms or flocking to their schools, and then they were lauded. Like, they were just like, look, that's our teacher of the year. But to the regular teacher, that was not, that those behaviors were not exactly celebrated initially. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. It's like, what can we actually learn from that mindset, that shift in the way we see people being fabulous in who they are? And then the second piece, which is, I know we're going to get to, is, Kelly and I work with women,
Mm,
and mainly women of color. And so when we want to show up in our fabulousness in certain kinds of ways, there's this push up against what that looks like because of all the isms, right? And
mm.
so, how does one like me show up in all her fabulousness against a pressure to conform and stay in my place? And still do it. Now, we have our story unwrapped that shows that you can do that, but not everybody's there in that journey. So, two comments: one about the education system and what that can turn it over, turn it on its head in terms of talent support and talent management. I'm thinking about, like, every HR person needs to be listening to this. And then second, in our work around supporting women specifically and maneuvering in those types of spaces and feeling the weight of conformity or a particular place makes it feel like a challenge. So I'm not asking you to answer any of that, but just a noticing that I hope that we can continue to rumble in the next few minutes around that statement.
Yes, and thank you. I think very often the worst thing we do right here is gaslight the problem and say, "Oh, well, who says you're really up against a challenge?" Or, "Where's
Mhm.
that pressure coming from? Isn't it just coming from within?" No, it's very real.
Yeah.
In some cases, it shows up as violence.
Yeah.
It's real.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So if we can all just agree on that, then I think we can stay curious. And where we trip over our own shoelaces is if we think that we have to have the answer to this challenge or to any of them, when really, okay, so best book of the summer.
Uh-huh.
Um, my kids and I have been listening to the audio version of a book called Millicent Quibb, School of Etiquette for Young Ladies of Mad Science. It's fiction.
Excuse me?
I know, just look it up later. I kid you not, it will change your life. It is somewhere between Wayside School and Harry Potter. And
Okay.
my whole family we listened to the Audible twice in a row. It was that good. My whole family has been quoting it. And one of the quotes that I love the most is, actually, adults do not have anything figured out. You think we do because we talk
Oh.
about it like we do, but adults are just as lost.
Mhm.
So that's like fiction leading to great moments in real life. I think I was just coaching a leader earlier today who is on day 90 of a big new role.
Hmm.
And I said, how have you made it through? What are you learning? And they said, the secret was so far to just stay incredibly curious and figure out how I can learn and reinforce what's already working around here. And that was, I think sometimes that's really counterintuitive because we
Mhm.
think, oh, I've got this platform, or I want to tell you what my style is, or I want to be a bold leader. So here I come with a megaphone, when really what we should be doing is handing the microphone to other people
Mm.
for two reasons. One, it supports collaboration, it's just good leadership. But two, it protects you from building these, like painting yourself into a corner of having to be right all the time. If instead you could just say, "Hey, is what I heard there really what you meant to say? Or can you tell me a little bit more about that?" You disarm people, you learn a lot more, and you protect yourself from building up this pedestal that all of a sudden you feel like you can't keep up with.
Yep. So I want to take what I'm now going to start calling our unwrapping pause moments, because there's
Yep.
something else that you said. You said, I'm going to go back. You said, assume walking into your journey of knowing your strengths and becoming your authentic self starts with assuming you have enough talent to begin with.
Yep.
Mm, mm.
I mean, for the women who are listening, I want
I'm
you
writing
to
it down.
get out a sticky note. I want you to get a pad out. I want you to write that down. Then the next time you're in any room, you start with the mind. In fact, I'm going to start saying this. You start with the mindset of assuming that you have enough talent to begin with. That mindset of abundance. One of the things that Kendra and I try not to do in one of our workshops that we do, and that we encourage women to do, is stop using the word imposter syndrome,
Oh my gosh.
because it was never created for us. But if you think about a syndrome means we take it internally, we take it inside. And when it was actually first coined, it was imposter phenomenon, because it was just studied. How come women have this mindset? What is going on? And then we took it on as it's our fault. It's our defect. It's why we. And so this idea of assuming you have enough talent to begin with is such a huge part of that journey.
Mm.
Mhm.
And it's not always easy, because we do go in with the scarcity mindset. Oh, she can do
Yeah.
that better than me. They can do that better than me. I feel, why did I get chosen? And
And we
when we
watch our students do that all the time too.
Oh, for sure. That they're not
unbelievable.
enough. That they're
And
not.
I just had a conversation the other day with a district leader, and we were talking about how, and I'm gonna kind of fudge these numbers a bit, but it's something like this. So when a man rises to the position of assistant principal, he sits in that position for about 2 years and then applies to be a principal. Women stay at least 5. And oftentimes, even when it's 5 and then they want to apply for something, they say, well, I need to get that other certification, or I need to get this. And when he doesn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you said, and I want to throw out a challenge, and Kendra, I think you were saying this, to anyone who's listening that is in education and in any way manages, supervises, or leads or directs teachers. So it could be principals, directors, coaches, mentors, whatever you are. If you are requiring your teachers to be in that box, why? Ask yourself, why do you require that? Because most of the time it's for compliance and control. It's easier to walk into every 5th grade classroom at 11:45 and know they're all doing the same thing the same way, because now I have control over that. So that is that other huge nugget, that kind of pause moment that that Kendra talked about, that I went, okay, so how do you shift that mindset to, here's the outcome we want, here's the resources you need. Now, how can you do it best?
Kelly, once again, you nailed it. And for half of my professional life at this point, I've been learning from you just in these micro nuggets. And I mean, you taught me, being on the road with Kelly taught me more about the real and enduring nature of human talent. And I think what you just said right here is why I'm so excited that your focus is on leadership, because I think perhaps we have chronic lack of leadership skill, and not talent, skill. Skill meaning it's something you can get better at, something you can learn and then apply your style to, of course. But step one, I spend a lot of time with people managers, whether or not they're in education. Right now, they're not. I'll just be transparent. But over and over and over again, we talk about how important it is to think about what your job is as a leader. And many educators probably end up as assistant principals and then principals, not because they wanted to think about leading a school, but because they were passionate about students or relationships or even their subject matter. So it's nobody's fault that we lack sometimes, I think, the skill. And this is going to be a hot take, but I know you can take it. I think we don't teach the skill of how to clarify expectations, how to set a measurable goal, and then how to get out of people's way and have the conversation that helps them find their way there. Because to your putting your teacher in a box comment, there are some things that we should expect every single teacher to do, like have a thoughtful way to teach the same material 25 different ways, or 25 is an exaggeration. Be prepared for what could come up. Know and love the human beings in your care. Now, you could do that 7 billion different ways. So it isn't just, are you putting them in a box? It is, where are you being incredibly specific about what good looks like? And how is that as far away from the current state and as possible, as close to the end of the end zone as you can possibly measure? And then it's finding something to count, rate, rank, sort, put a date to, put a way of you and I both understanding whether or not I'm getting there. That's the skill of management. And I think a lot of folks inside and outside education just don't even know that sometimes it is the belief in talent, that your people are talented enough as they are. But then it's also the practice over and over again of, how am I clarifying expectations and then facilitating support so that they can get there with whatever support from me they might need.
You're spot on. In fact, when Kendra and I were writing our book and decided to start Lucy Leadership Project, one of the things we talked about is, one of our goals or missions is to fill the gaps in leadership development that she and I both never got, that we got outside of our formal training, or that we sought ourselves. And so I know when I was preparing to become a principal, my schooling, my master's program, was mostly compliance, policy, control, law, basically keeping the school district out of court, those kinds of things. It wasn't quite honestly until I got to Gallup that I even knew what my strengths were, how I should show up as a leader, all of those pieces. So one of the things we are constantly in search of is, where are those gaps? And then laser focused on, where are those gaps for women? Because it's okay for us to say we need something different.
Yeah.
We need something different, because when we talk about schooling and education, it is a system that was never built for us to move into leadership. We were always supposed to stay in the classroom because we're natural nurturers, right? So we stay in the classroom. So there's that gap. So I want to keep walking down this journey a bit. So now, okay, so we've identified kind of, it starts with a mindset of abundance and authenticity and being open to some new skill sets. So talk a little bit about, and I think this is so important to talk about right now, one of our, besides strengths, are probably next to strengths, workshop we're asked to come in and facilitate and talk about is well-being, especially right now. So talk to us a bit about well-being and also how it impacts this
Do
journey.
they ask for well-being or do they ask for burnout?
They might ask for retention. They may say,
Yeah.
they may say well-being. A lot of
Yeah, they
times
say wellness, but I don't think we've heard
Yeah.
burnout. They're just like, they don't say burnout, but they describe these moments of, especially the women, they describe always being on. They
Yeah.
describe being very tired. They describe, like exhaustion.
Yeah.
They describe like busyness to the point where they can't say no. So that's when
Yeah.
we get into boundary settings, or just they don't understand why they might be feeling the way they are feeling. They love the work, but they're tired.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And they also might be feeling
it's
physical
for sure.
effects.
So that's where it comes in. It's like, we need some wellness, and we go and we're like, all right, if you think we're about to like do some nails and hair and a massage, that's not what we're talking about, right? We're
Right.
talking about, like, we're going into well-being. So yeah, I think the setup around, so what does that mean as you're thinking about the field? How does that fit? What are you seeing in terms of the alignment between the strengths and well-being?
So this is probably the second time I've been this honest ever about my own story. So let's just unwrap this.
Ooh, let's go in.
Hey, listen, anybody out there listening has read our book,
I'm ready.
Get the popcorn.
Ready.
It's no surprise. I think
Ready
a
to
lot
go.
of people have been exactly where I was, but I scraped the bottom of the barrel on being the opposite of well.
Mhm.
And it was because I was doing it all, in air quotes, whatever that it all thing is. But let me bring you back to a little time in our history called 2020.
Mhm.
I had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. No, they were younger than that. They were little. I was at the peak of my professional experience. I mean, I don't want to talk about a global disaster as if it was promising, but there was something about this storm of COVID events that launched me into, wow, every skill set I have is exactly what my organization needs right now. And they're trusting me enough to just jump in and lead it. So overnight, I went from being one of a handful of people who would ever do what we used to call conference calls to leading our organization in how do we do everything virtual. And it was a really, I think, intellectually fertile experience because there was no playbook.
Yeah.
And I love working hard, especially in a place where I know I can succeed. And I knew that, gosh, this is a put me in coach moment. And then it just never stopped, because in addition to assuming that you have enough talent to do what it takes, here's the unwritten rule that you should also assume, which is it will take whatever you give it. Schools, communities, your kids, your corporation will always keep taking as long as you're giving. So that's a kind of a negative but true statement. But the other piece that I think we don't teach people about, or maybe we don't talk about enough, is that those people who you admire, who succeed, who stay healthy, they have created barriers
Hmm.
that say, hey, you can't have any more of me right now.
Yeah, the
And
boundary.
I think where we get it wrong, and it's probably in a lot of our conditioning and
Mhm.
a lot of what we tend to. I also think that for those HR leaders listening, we use recognition as a band-aid to cover up poor behavior by
Mm.
saying, "Oh, we helped squeeze every last drop of energy out of you, but don't worry, here's a gold star." Like,
Yep.
if that's what you're recognizing, you're elevating overwork. You're elevating operating off of adrenaline only. If you look at the stress curve and performance, like externally, you are probably producing the same amount of like high level cognitive performance when you are just about burned out and on the floor as you are when you are really pushing, maybe a little bit tired. Those are very different experiences. So if
Mm.
you're only recognizing the people who are going into the red, you're just perpetuating this cycle of overwork. And it actually, you're the only one who's hurting from that because nobody knows if that's healthy stress or that's unhealthy stress except for you.
Mm.
So understanding that
Mm.
your organization, just like your pet or your child, will always take everything that you're willing to give. That's not their fault, that's their job, right? Like, just like you wouldn't blame your kid for wanting one more book at night, you'd be like, "Oh, good, I'm glad you like me and you wanna hang out with me." Like, you actually do have to be your own, parent and
Mhm.
say, "This is
Mhm.
how you can get the best of me, and I can still have enough to do it without resentment." So I think that's a dark place that we don't really talk about enough is, like, negotiation happens every single day. It is negotiating, I need a little bit more time to plan, or I want to be here for you, but I'm not going to be at my best until I get to talk to these people, or I get to and maybe it's not even that you need more time. Maybe it's that you need less time. But whatever it is understanding what supports and fuels your strengths. That's a part of your well being.
Mm.
And it's going just like your strengths are going to describe the sort of challenges that you are going to rise to and accelerate to exponential levels. Your strengths also describe what do you need instead of a spa day.
Yep.
Because I think the good news is we've come to this space where we all know that well-being is not nails and spa day. But why, when I was super duper burned out and people said, well, it's just because you're not in the office enough, or it's just because you need another vacation day. Why did all of that feel like it was not going to be restorative? It's because there's a difference between rest and 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 I think like not moving. And
Mhm.
if you can pay attention to what your strengths really crave, it is the difference between just turning your phone off or putting your phone on the charger.
Mm.
So there are going to be some
Yeah.
activities that really fuel you in rest and some that just don't. And understanding what is your best routine. Now, water, movement, and sleep are good for everybody. That's table stakes. If we have 70 years of information about the differences between talent of people, why would we not also be applying it to your most restorative rest? There's a reason that if I vacation with my husband, he wants a checklist and like probably a stopwatch, just for some way of his achiever competition to really feel refueled. I want to stare at the wall and maybe watch the ocean. Like that's it. Those are also worth paying attention to because the best thing that you can do as a leader is protect your well-being routine and nobody's going to do it for you because they're going to continually take everything that you're willing to give. And it's because they love what you have to offer. So the other piece I think we haven't said out loud, but I hope is the note below all of this is you don't have to do any of this alone. And it's a whole lot easier to do with a tribe of people who are going to reflect to you who you
Yep.
are.
Yep. And which is, you just hit the nail on the head because one of our values is community. We recognize that, again, to take what your part of your story going back to 2020 when people were isolated. I think there's also this false narrative that introverts were like happy that they were. It's like that's introvert and being alone are two different things, right? So this idea
Yeah.
of not having human contact, and not being with people to bounce ideas off of, or energy around, love and touch and intimacy, and those kinds of ways, um, really just got to the core of how humans survive. We survive in an ecosystem of community, right? So uh, when we are thinking about our well-being, community is one of the components of well-being that we talk a lot about. Um, and this idea of purpose, idea of doing something that we love, that's the give and get energy piece you were just talking about. I saw this one comment here, and this is my mom, who says, I've learned to live life in abundance instead of scarcity. Just thinking about that mindset of I'm living in abundance and not living with I don't have enough of. And Kimberly's comment about being most unwell when her strengths are underutilized. This thing about it removed entirely, I just think that's something that we could unpack too, right? That strategy and ideation are her top two. And when she can't work in that space, she's stressed and miserable. And we have so many people who are stressed and miserable at work and at home because they're not activating those areas, or they're at what you said, they're like depleted because they can't, they haven't, they want to turn it off because it's not being reciprocated in a way that's fueling them. What does that mean? I'm curious what you have seen in your experience over the years about how maybe this might manifest itself differently for women, or yeah, if there is some nuances to that, especially around gender or even race differences.
I work from this space of just studying what works, and what I've seen really transform people into spaces where their words, not mine. They say, wow, I don't have that imposter syndrome anymore, which I'm always like, okay, I don't know what that was. But
Yes.
I'm thinking specifically about younger women that I've worked with,
Mhm.
many of them racial minorities in their organizations or their locales. What I've seen work is when it's intentionally done in community.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that would be a gender thing or not, but
Mhm.
leaning into the communal um,
Yep.
space on purpose. So usually it happens something over time. Like it really does have to be having some accountability of this is going to last not one PD day, but this is going to
Mhm.
be like a school year or longer. And usually, where we'll begin, and I do a lot of this work internally within organizations, I've done it specifically for women in some spaces. Where we'll begin is give those folks a platform to describe their perspective,
Mhm.
where maybe they don't even realize that they're telling you about their strengths. And other people in the room will start to take notes. And that is a light bulb moment. That
Mhm.
is, Kelly, what you might call like an unwrapped pause moment, is
Mhm.
when somebody else who almost feels like they're a peer because they're in your community
Yeah, yeah.
starts to take notes of what you just think is something everybody is noticing. Like that's a crucial piece that I think um, maybe women are more open to having those conversations when it is just women in the room.
Mm.
Um, so, I mean, that's what I've seen. I don't know
Yeah.
that that's a gender thing specifically, but it really does need to be over and over again, I'm going to see you. And the more I realize that, oh, I thought what I was describing was something everybody knew. You mean you didn't notice that?
Yeah.
For example, somebody here, Kimberly, I think said strategic and
Yeah.
ideation.
Yep.
I bet Kimberly can, like off the top of her head, give you 5 different ways that you could structure a classroom. And the minute that somebody else hears her say that and writes it down, or recognizes her by asking her to say more, like that is a spark. And then
Yes.
what we have to do is continue to stoke that spark. And I think what works is, in a lot of cases, as long as they know that they're safe to have the conversation, groups of women are really what
Yeah.
creates culture.
Yep. Yep. And by the way, Kimberly would do that. I know her enough. I have worked with her in the past, and yep, she would absolutely have all the different ways. A, B, C. She strategic is for sure. She was like, "Well, we can't do it. What about?" She would say that. What about this way? It's like, yep,
Yeah.
she's on fire when she's in that space.
And
Yeah,
Yep.
it doesn't matter if it's 2 or if it's 20.
yeah.
Groups of women in a closed, safe space do some cool stuff. So how do we just make that happen more on purpose?
That's right. Well, yeah,
Yes.
that is
Be
true.
intentional. Well, and you made me think of, I wrote down common humanity. You know,
Mm.
that's Kristen Neff's work on self-compassion, where she talks about one element is common humanity. And that is just, oh, you mean it wasn't
Mhm.
just me? You know, so when
Yeah.
women also get in community like that, and you say something, you're like, "Oh, I thought that was
Mhm.
just me. Oh, you mean that's happening to all of you too? Okay. All right. Now let's rumble with that and figure out, what do we do about that? Okay, so here are my unwrapped pause moments that I need to go back to for myself. It will take the system will take whatever you're giving. And so it makes me think about probably our third most asked workshop is
Mm.
on boundary setting. It's and the way we define boundaries is, how do you teach people they can have access to you? How do you it's because we often refer to boundaries as a people think
Yeah.
it's a door. I'm going to say no, I'm going to close a door. And it's not necessarily a door. It could be a no, but it could be a no, but maybe. It could be a no, but how about over there? How about this alternative? So it's, how do you reframe that? Um, and then because when you say yes all the time, when you say yes to a project that's given to you on Friday at 4:30, and they want it, by 6 or Monday morning, you have just said, I am willing. You can have me for the weekend and my family can't.
Mm.
You can have, so you are sending that message around all of that. It's really about the language. And you're right, Micah. What we find is, when we're working with groups of women, especially around boundary setting, it's language we need, because we're not socialized to say no. We're socialized to say yes to everything and to take care of everyone. So we constantly do that. And then when it comes time, and we actually call the workshop Anatomy of a Boundary, because we go through how your body feels when you
Mhm.
are about to set a boundary. And it can be a
Mm.
physical reaction. So I love that you said that. And so I'm going to throw out another question to those leaders of people, whatever position you hold. How are you perpetuating that? Are you sending emails at 9 o'clock at night? Are you sending
Mhm.
emails over the weekend? Because it doesn't matter if you start the email with, "You don't have to read this right now. If you can fire me, I'm going to read
Yes.
that email, and I'm going to
Mhm.
probably respond to it." So it's those of you who lead, whether you're a principal, a district leader, an assistant principal, whatever that is, a director, how are you perpetuating that inability to set a boundary, and are you continuing to take? So that's kind of the other thing that you said. I love this idea that we're negotiating what happens every day. Um, and the other thing that gave me pause is when you talked about gratitude. And every time I think about gratitude, I can't think about gratitude without thinking about joy. Because if you want joy in your life, you have to walk through gratitude. You cannot get to gratitude unless you get to joy.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
you cannot get to joy unless you get to gratitude. So gratitude is the gatekeeper, is the gateway. So when we have this feeling of abundance, that I'm enough, I have enough, what's happening is enough. In this
Mm.
moment, might be a challenge with this moment, but we have to have those moments of joy and just take that pause and say, right now, I'm I have enough. I am enough. I assume I have enough talent when I walk in the room. And when we do that, then we start to look for those moments all day long, all through our life, and that's when the joy comes. So there's no joy without gratitude. And then I love what you said about recognition. And I probably wrote it differently, but what I wrote was uh, sometimes we use recognition actually to
Yeah.
reinforce those burnout
Yeah.
behaviors,
And
you know, and we reward exhaustion. I mean, think about it, Kendra. Think about it when you used to go to district meetings with principals. Sometimes what they would do is talk
oh
about how
yeah,
long they
for
stayed the
sure.
night before
Yeah.
in their office, and everyone
And I
would,
work
oh
this weekend, and
yeah,
we
you
have a meeting on Sunday. I was doing work, the laptop on my body as soon as I got home, and the laptop, going to sleep with it and up all night. Just yeah, and then it's
Sounds
like,
I mean, yeah, it
yeah,
sounds
we
like you're
reward.
an inefficient planner, and I don't want you in charge of a classroom, let
right,
alone a group of adults.
yeah. Well, Kelly, you mentioned gratitude. I put up Rochelle's comment here. Rochelle is a friend of ours who has a gratitude movement online. And so every day she posts something she's grateful for. And so, but she asked this interesting question around boundary setting. She says, knowing that your
Mm,
purpose still requires you to do things you don't love, how do you assess your own boundaries to make sure you're not leaning too far in the uninspired places? Like,
Mm.
holy smokes, right? I mean, there are gives and takes, and there are sacrifices, right? It's a means to an end. So let me put that question back up because I think it's interesting. And by the way, Kimberly Light afterwards, with her strategic goes, what if?
Yes.
Such a strategic person. But I think all of what you just wrapped into saying, Kelly, want to sort of leave you with this question, Micah. I mean, how do we assess our own boundaries to make sure we're not leaning too far in uninspired places?
I think there's something you said earlier about the teacher of the year
Yes.
not doing anything like everybody else had done.
Yes.
This is what you see when you research top performers anywhere.
Yep.
Excellence is idiosyncratic.
Mm,
Right? Real excellence. If you think about the people who've made the most difference on your life, they are not the same. They
yeah.
did not follow a playbook. They somehow figured out how to channel their own gut instincts, which we would also call their talent.
Hmm.
And I think to the purpose question with boundaries, as well as the question about well-being, as well as the question about authentic versus hustle, to me, the common theme here is just like everybody will take what you're giving, especially if you're already a pretty good performer, nobody's going to raise your bar like you will.
Hmm.
And if you can't do this on your own, find a friend who you know will do it with you. But we got to stop racing to the middle.
Mm.
What if
mm,
you just made it a routine once a week to say, what was the best 5 minutes of that week? Or, yeah, the air is heavy right now, but I'm going to be the best educator that these students have for right now. Or this is, I coach a minister who has high restorative. And so
Mm.
she also has maximizer. So after every funeral, she always wanted to say, oh, how could that have been better? And one time, not even meaning to be tongue in cheek as her coach, I said, it's probably the best funeral they're going to have.
That's right.
And
That's right.
right. But I mean, here's the
they don't
thing,
know.
they don't know. Nobody else is wondering if you're enough.
Yeah.
Everybody else is wondering if they're enough. So you really can get away with more than you think in terms of confidence.
Hmm.
And if you could raise the bar to say, not just how do I get through this day or this week or this quarter or this year, and how do I take whatever they'll give me and make it work? Just have a hot second to say, let me raise the bar and say, what would be the best possible?
Hmm.
And what would be even better than that? What would be even better than I could dream? And we have to continually do that. We have to do that to study our boundaries. Asking yourself really extreme questions, and giving yourself the brain space to really think about your reaction. It doesn't mean you have to ask for the moon, but if you're not thinking about what could be best, you're going to end up with whatever you'll get. So, how could you have the best possible relationship with the other adults in your building? When can people get the very best from you? What does the most restorative time on the weekend look like? How could if everything else was assumed that it would work out, what would you spend more of your time doing? I think we have to have a cultural shift away from just racing toward the middle, because that is what drives us to put people in boxes, to have more compliance be the top bullet on every PD agenda. Excellence is not going to be the same. And individually, your excellence, your healthiest days, your greatest partnerships, your strongest boundaries, your like most trusted advisors, they're going to be because you allowed that extreme to be there. So I think we've got to spend more time exploring the extremes and considering, hey, if this all worked out, if I could ask for anything, if people really knew how to, the care and keeping, like the tag that says dry clean only,
Yes.
if they really knew how to get the best of me, what would it be? The secret is nobody is trying to get the most mediocre out of you.
Mm.
Everyone around you really does want you to succeed too. And wouldn't you want to know how to get the best out of the people around you? So I think it is a little bit of like saying, here's how you get the best of me. I'll go first. I also want to stay curious about how I might get the best of you.
Yeah, that resonated. Rochelle said she loves the idea of asking what was the best 5 minutes of this week and having an accountability partner to do that with, which
Yeah, I think
is
you got to be flexible about it too. And, this comes from a lesson that I got from my high school ag teacher. I never thought I was going to take an agricultural education class. I ended up really, really involved in it because the high school that I went to had a really great FFA program. And I remember he said early on, okay, Micah, you're taking this class anyway. Why would you not join the, extracurricular that's involved in it? It's like having pancakes and not having syrup. So you're going to do the work anyway. Why would you not do the reflection about how it could be excellent?
right.
It's worth being the one who says, I'm here for the syrup, even if that means I'm not going to send that email after 5 p.m. If that's your version of syrup today, that's excellent. You can readjust that in a year when maybe your home life looks different. But it is allowing yourself to really aim not just for the middle, but for your personal top shelf experience.
Wow.
Good.
All right. So tomorrow I'm leaving to go present at a SHRM conference, and now I've got to redo my entire presentation.
No, I think go ahead, Kelly.
I was just going to ask her one last question.
The same thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, same thing.
So, okay. So I'm going to ask you this like big question. If you, to the women that are listening, because our mission is wrapped around the women leaders, what is one nugget? What is one maybe major recommendation for starting down kind of this journey? What would you say? This is the start. This is what I would do. This is the starting point. What would be your advice, Coach?
Visualize a normal workday in your favorite future self's life. Go through the entire day, and I've done this before as like a guided meditation. I won't right here because we'll be quick, but like think about not just those big bucket list dreams you have, but what is a really great boring day? And pay attention to things that might seem petty, like what kind of decorations do you love in your home that you see? Or what are you wearing when you feel super put together? And what do you eat and who are you with? And then work from there. Because we're not talking about something that's only available if your dreams come true. I think what we're talking about is the courage to say, right here in this life, I am going to fill it with who I am. And if you can start in a normal, boring workday sometime in the future and then work back, I think it feels a lot more real and like a starting point. And Kelly, I learned this from you and I've repeated it so often. You and I were on the road helping district leaders hire great teachers. And you said, an open spot is not just a spot for a body. Every hire is an opportunity. And I think every conversation is an opportunity. I think about you all the time when I say, yes, you could just fill things, or you could be picky because you deserve it. So be
You don't
picky.
even remember you said that. Look at you. Oh.
Every new hire is an opportunity to get better or to get worse. And you make that decision. For those of you who are hiring agents or do hiring as part of that's your opportunity. That is an opportunity. So thank you, Maika.
That's a great reminder. I mean, that nugget of like, in this life, fill it with who you are. I mean, that goes back to Corey enough, right?
Oh.
In this life, like, and what you just asked people to envision, like visualize a normal work day. I think we don't even stop. Like, sometimes it is the small things that can give us, like, visualize you actually having lunch. How about going to pee?
In less than 30 seconds.
Like just going to the bathroom and having an actual lunch and not having to shovel something as you're walking and it's still on your desk, or that painting, or a smell, or the way your desk is organized, or just, a nice commute to work. No traffic. All those things that I think I think what you said, we try to like cure world hunger when we can just be working on some small things, the bite size at a time.
Yeah. And women especially, get more protein than you think you need.
How about that?
There you go.
How about that? That's right.
I learned that.
More protein now.
I learned that. Maika, I cannot thank you enough. And Kendra, I'm just going to jump the gun.
Yes,
Will you
please.
come back this was
please. I mean, we might just have to have like a personal invite where people like register and we like close this off and they get to ask tons of questions, because I'm getting a text message now like, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. Like, it's like, okay, people really, it's resonating. And I think, again, just the start of a school year and having people know that they're worth who they are because they are in it. I think that's a great way to start. So thank you, Maika. It's been a pleasure listening.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. You will be.
Yes,
you will be back.
And
we would love to have you back. I'm just telling you, I'm not asking.
I'm in. Book it.
Yeah, well, we are hoping, our plan is for the rest of this school year that we have people who are experts, not only in their fields, but also can provide just really good nuggets to just remind us to remind us that we are here, to remind us that we're worthy. And so, Maika, you kicked off, and quite frankly, I'll leave with this last comment here with child on the protein, working on it now.
Apparently it matters. I did not know that. That is one of those unwritten rules that we have to talk about more.
Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us in August. We'll be back in September. By the way, September is National Virginia and National New York month. So we might have 2 people from the state of Virginia and New York to join us in the conversation.
Well, we know,
to join us in the conversation about all things well-being, boundary setting, and scarcity, but also how to live in your purpose and be in community. We want to wish you well for the start of the school year. For those of you who are already in it, keep doing what you're doing because students are relying on you. So thank you. Have a really good night.
And
thank you, Maika.